Okay, I think I'm live. So we'll see if anyone will join for the first A Darker Shade of Magic video or live show discussion. Uh, I feel like the interest for the read along has been. Oh, wait. Okay, sorry. I started to hear myself and I realized that, yeah, I had the video up. But yeah, so I do feel like the interest for the read along has been a bit low, or I don't know, it hasn't been that hyped, which is completely fine. But I'm still gonna attempt to host this live show, and people can possibly rewatch it afterwards if they would like, or whatever. Although it would be easier to have someone to play off with. Maybe for the next show. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes in case people might join. Otherwise, this is awkward. But oh well, you can't get it all. I had an amazing live show yesterday, which was epic, actually. So, and also I know myself that even though I have participated in read-alongs and similar, I don't necessarily watch the live shows, so that is also completely fine. But in case you missed it, or in case you're just entering this show, we're here to discuss A Darker Shade of Magic by Wee Schwab, the first book in the A Darker Shade of Magic or Shades of Magic series. I'm doing this read along in honor of the new book that's being released in September. So, throughout the summer, we will be reading the series, and this is the first book and the first discussion. For me, this book is a reread. I read the series back in 2019, and I claim it to be the series that truly got me back into reading. Uh, I was determined to pick up reading it again. I haven't really read for fun or read for my own pleasure in like years. And I was recommended this book. I picked it up, I devoured it, and then I picked up the rest of the series and just read it all within a couple of weeks. So it really went from 0 to 100 for me. This is my first time rereading the series, and I was so excited to get back into this world and into this universe and see whether I would still love and appreciate the series as much as I did the first time around. And I'm quite happy to say that the book didn't disappoint, and my experience was still as amazing as the first time. Um, I have tabbed it throughout reading it as well, and I also picked up, in honor of this read along, I picked up this very gorgeous collector's edition of the book. So I believe it's like a special cover. We also have a bunch of nice art on the end papers, and there's also foiling underneath the dust jacket, and there's bonus chapters and a glossary. We have a bookmark ribbon as well, so a bunch of fun stuff. um, yeah, so I guess I can start with my thoughts on this one. I i gave this one 5 stars. Again, the first time I read it I gave it 5 stars, and now this time I also gave it 5 stars. What did I think of it the second time around? First of all, I love this world, and I rediscovered my love for this world in this one. I really love the magic system as well, and not more, and the characters, of course. I feel like those three things: the worlds, the magic, and the characters are the main things about this one, and the things that people tend to love the most. I also do really like the writing. It's not the lyrical type of writing. It's nothing compared to Adi LaRue by Reed Schwab. It's much more of a fast-paced, straightforward, straight to the point sort of writing, but I really appreciate that actually, especially when I started to read this book first. So I feel like it's a very easy book to get into, especially if you're someone that you're starting to dip your toes into reading um, more adult fantasies. This is a really great one to start with because it's super approachable and accessible, I would say at least, compared to many other epic and high fantasies. So if you've ever been interested in getting into adult fantasy, perhaps you've only read young adult fantasy when you were younger, but you really want to read something, this is a great place to start because it's basically it's a story that is set up with our world as a background. It's uses our sort of our London as a basis, but then of course the story takes place across multiple Londons with various degrees of magic in them, and that's one fun thing with it, I would say. Um, what more? The magic system is more sort of a elemental type of magic, which I really enjoy. So people can control water, fire, earth, air, also bones, but also some people can use magic with blood, and those are called Antari, and that's the main protagonist of this book. Kel is someone who does blood magic and can travel across parallel Londons, parallel universes, worlds. Um, yeah. So once again, a very approachable first fantasy if you want to start reading fantasy, I would say. Uh, it's also very fast paced, which I once again really appreciate. And I'm gonna share a bit of the tabbing system I used for this one. I mainly use tabs just for my own enjoyment, not really for any type of review purpose. But what I decided to tab throughout this one were moments I enjoyed, or like iconic moments, a bit of, I guess, like information slash foreshadowing moments, because I've read the series before, so I know what's coming up now, and then also funny moments and sad moments. So, as I said, what I loved about this, the world, the characters, all of that stayed the same. But how was this read different from my other reads then? Well, for one, I feel like I appreciated the characters more than I did the first time along. So there are 3 or 4 main characters. We have Kel, we have Lila, and we have Holland. We also have Rai, who is Kel's brother, not by blood, but in every other sense. Those I would say are like the 4 main characters. And Kel and Lila I've always loved, or especially Kel and Rai also. But I feel like reading this book or rereading this book, I actually started to appreciate both Lila and Holland more. I did love Lila before, but I started to appreciate her even more, and also Holland. I was never really a fan of Holland during my first read of the series. I know that many love him as a character. I didn't quite get the hype, but reading it now, I definitely did. So yeah, what more? Yeah. Sorry, I'm blanking. Another thing I noticed when I was reading this one is that this time around, since I read the other books in the series, it really feels so much more like the story is building up to something. I think the first time I read it, it felt like it could be its own story, like it was almost a standalone. But the second time I read it now, I really, probably because I know, but it really feels like it's building up to something bigger. It's building up to the other 2 books in the series. And I love the feeling of that. I didn't catch that the first time around, but I really did it now. So I love how we've only started to get to know this world and these characters, and that there's so much more to come. That's something I really appreciate with this one. So yeah, I'm super excited to continue with the series actually. So I don't know, I can perhaps flip through my tabs a bit and you see if there's anything interesting to point out. Obviously, we have the very famous first quote. Kel wore a very peculiar coat. Love that quote. Quote unquote. Yeah, we get some hints about upcoming stuff. What more? Is there? Yeah, Lila has some great quotes as well. That's something I noticed while reading this one. And then okay, yeah. It would be really interesting to hear what those who have read this book thinks of it, and especially if perhaps some of you have reread this book for this read along or in preparation for the new release. Please let me know what you thought of the book during the reread, actually, because your opinion might have changed. For me, the book stayed as consistent, and I understand why this book captured my younger self. Like it makes sense why I fell so hard for this book 4 years ago. It truly does make sense for me because of how fast paced it is, how approachable it is, and I was very new to the like adult fantasy scene when I picked this up for the first time. So yeah, I'm thinking about doing like a 25 reasons why you should read A Darker Shade of Magic. So hopefully that might be coming up sometime during the summer alongside with the read along. I'm very curious to see. I don't know if there's things I should pay attention to that might show up in the new release. I don't think so. I don't think it's planned that way. So I don't think it's as like complex as with Brandon Sanderson's books, for example, where you need to pay attention to every single detail because that might show up in a later book or something. I do think that this trilogy is pretty contained, and that the new trilogy will, although it's taking place in this world and these characters will show up in the new books, I don't think V. Schwab wrote these books with those new books in mind, if that makes sense. I couldn't really think of any complaints when I read this one, like no major plot holes or things I didn't quite understand. I didn't really struggle that much with pacing or anything like that. I guess the one thing would be that considering Kel, like I feel like Kel and Lila bond really quickly, or especially Kel starts to trust Lila really quickly, which I don't know if that's out of character or not. Please share your opinion on that. But it is a very quickly developing relationship between those two, like a platonic relationship, or just an allyship, perhaps is the word to use. Because otherwise, Kel doesn't usually come across as the most trusting type of person, considering his background and what he's been through. But he starts to trust Lila fairly quickly, I would say. They do form a type of friendship, allyship quite quickly throughout the book, which might feel odd occasionally, but I definitely would say 100% works for the book. But yeah, do I have any other discussion points? Or are the things that are obviously there's some foreshadowing in this one for upcoming books. So if you know, you know. I'm not sharing any spoilers in this video because I feel like this is turning out more as like a review, perhaps something to pick up your interest instead of like an actual discussion. Had we been more people in this show, there perhaps would have been a discussion and more spoilers. I'm certain that will be more the case with future live shows instead. But yeah. Do I have anything to add? I don't think I do. I'm curious to see also how if I will think that V. Schwab's writing is developing throughout the series now, because this book was published, I think it was published in like 2016 or something. Could that be it? Yeah, okay, 2015 even. So this book was actually published 9 years ago. No, wait, I can't count. 8 years ago. So, and I think, when was the last book in the series published? Maybe like 2-3 years later. So I do feel like there might be some development of just V. Schwab's own writing skills. So that will actually be interesting to see. And it will be very interesting to compare that to Fragile Threads of Power. Also because I've seen on V. Schwab's Instagram that apparently Fragile Threads of Power is her chunkiest book yet. So it's even longer than the third book in the series, which will be very interesting and fun. And I'm actually quite excited about that. Yeah. What am I excited about then? I'm excited about reading the second book in the series now because there's a magical competition in it. And I'm also excited about getting to the third book, because I know in the third book of this collector's edition, there's actually a bonus chapter that reveals Kel's true name. That is something that is hinted at even in this book first, that when Kel first entered the royal palace, he didn't really have a name. He just had like a monogrammed knife with the letters K and L. So he doesn't really know anything else. So that's where his nickname comes from, but he doesn't know his own name. So it will be very interesting to read about that. Yeah, I actually think I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna wrap up this little book talk, but feel free to share your opinions in case you're watching this like afterwards. Feel free to share your opinions in the chat, and we can have a discussion there if you like, or feel free to just tweet ADSOMalong on Twitter. I'm always there, like ready to answer any questions or have any discussions regarding the series. But I'm very happy I'm rereading this one. It's been a great experience so far, so I'm very excited to continue as well. I hope that if you decided to join this read along, that you're enjoying the book. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say at this current moment. I'm hoping to see some people in the next live show, and enjoy your reads, enjoy your time, and read A Darker Shade of Magic, because it's amazing, and don't be scared by it. I'll see you later. Take care.